New this morning, President Trump is reinventing the national 4th of July celebration. The Washington Post reporting he's moving it from its usual location on the National Mall to be closer to the Potomac River. And he's making tentative plans to address the nation from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, which could turn the celebrations into another version of a Trump campaign rally. Joining me now is Boston Herald radio host Adriana Cohen, a nationally syndicated columnist, and Democratic strategist Antoine Seawright, former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign in South Carolina. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Adriana, I want to start with you. Should President Trump be inserting himself into what's traditionally been a nonpartisan celebration?
Absolutely. I mean, he is the president. If he feels like doing something new, why not? Interior officials say that by moving it from the mall to the West Potomac, it's going to allow for more visitors, so that's good for all Americans. And as long as they come in, without blowing out the budget, I think it's a good move. Why not?
Antoine, what's your reaction to him potentially turning this into a campaign-style rally?
Well, I'm definitely not surprised by this behavior from the president because we've consistently seen where his comfort zone is, and that's the campaign-style platform where he can throw out all the right-wing, red meat, toned-down racial rhetoric to get a response from his group of supporters. And it's a chance for him to really continue his effort to not govern, but really continue to campaign and be a campaign-in-chief as we get closer to his re-election campaign in 2020. So I'm definitely not surprised. What I think I'm most disappointed in is the fact that you don't hear many Republicans call him out for this because, as you said in your opening, this has traditionally been a nonpartisan measure to do the traditional 4th of July activities at the White House.
All right, I want to move on to a different topic now. Adriana, another new report from Politico says that President Trump said that Biden's 2020 campaign reminds him of his 2016 race when he surged to the front of that very large Republican field. Why does the president keep directing attention towards Joe Biden? What's his strategy there, Adriana?
Well, I think he thinks, he possibly has the best chance to beat, out of all the candidates, Joe Biden. There are similarities in terms of, if you look at Joe Biden's launch, it was very successful, and he is really, way ahead of all his competitors by about 18% in the latest Monmouth University poll. He's trouncing all of his competitors in the Democratic field, and so that is similar to President Trump during 2016, where he got out ahead within a very short time after his launch and stayed there. So there are some similarities.
Well, it's evidently clear that the president is trying to shape a general election argument very early, and he is trying to really generate a response from his base and let them know the seriousness of this race and what Joe Biden brings to this race. Joe Biden has consistently been the front runner, but he's also, I think, one of very few people who are seeking out a nomination that could bring our party together, number one, but number two, pull away at some of the support Donald Trump received in 2016. So, of course, the president is using this as an opportunity to make this about him, but also to really start to pre-shape a general election argument. And this is the similarity between 2016 and possibly 2020 matchup. He is using this as an opportunity for his supporters to start to eat away at Joe Biden and draw out some of his negatives, as what we've seen in 2016 when the Republicans did the same thing with Hillary Clinton.
I wanted to give you a chance to expand on that thought, Antoine. The latest poll out of New Hampshire has Joe Biden at 36%, while Bernie Sanders is in second place. He's got half of that. So as you were mentioning here, do you really think that's it? This is a two-person contest from here on out.
Listen, you never count anyone out in this business because they usually come around and teach you that you do not know how to count. But it is early. Joe Biden does enjoy some affection and love in the Democratic primary to this point, more so than any other candidate. But here's the key constituency that I think will mold and shape this race, and that's the African-American vote. And while I appreciate New Hampshire polls, I value Iowa polls, and it's good to read about Nevada polls, the most important poll is South Carolina because that is the battleground. 60% of African-Americans will cast their vote, 55% women. That will be the real test case for Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and any other candidate who will want to go on to be our party's nominee. And really, it's the best place to grab supper on this long journey to the White House.
Sound biased there, that's why. All right, Adriana, the New York Times is reporting that President Trump wants to capitalize on the China trade dispute for 2020. It says his recent statements suggest he now believes that demonstrating his toughness with the Chinese and walking away from a deal might well put him in a better position politically than signing one. What do you think about that?
Well, absolutely. You know, a lot of Americans, most Americans, especially President Trump's supporters, really appreciate his courage in finally taking on China, because there's been massive, you know, trade inequities that have been going on, ignored for decades. And, you know, he's tired of America getting the short end of the stick, whether it's trade, and he's also addressing China, you know, intellectual property theft and other abuses. And so he's, you know, championing, you know, America First policies, and finally trying to get this right. And, you know, it's working. He's you know, people had said President Trump was, you know, just bluffing. He really wasn't going to raise tariffs, and then he did. And so President Trump is a man of his word, and so far he's winning in this battle against China.
He's not winning anything other than he's winning what we always knew about Donald Trump, that he is more interested in doing politics versus governing. Look, the bottom line is farmers in this country are feeling the pain from some of the activities and some of the positions Donald Trump has taken. And what does he do? He goes and gives them billions of dollars in bailouts, the same thing that Republicans in your party rail against time after time and want to blame the Democrats for running up the debt. And so what you're going to see is a continued pass down of pain to everyday working people in this country because of the activities and because of the posturing Donald Trump is doing.
Last thing, Antoine, I want to ask you about Elizabeth Warren. She's leading the pack on policy proposals. Her go-to line, I have a plan for that, even made the latest Time magazine cover. Yet in top polls, she's trailing Biden and Bernie Sanders, and in some cases even Pete Buttigieg. What do you chalk that up to?
Well, I commend the senator for her effort. Arguably, she has been the most aggressive when it comes to laying out a policy agenda that impacts certain communities, particular communities that look like mine. And so she's being rewarded for her work. I call her what we referred to Allen Iverson in 2012 as the answer. She's the answer on the political basketball court. But I do think that she has a problem in the polls in terms of her policy agenda, and her policy prescription has not moved her up into where she needs to be politically. But it's a long race, and I think she is starting to inch up, so direction is far more important than speed. And so I hope this is transferable, but if not else, she's raising the bar in terms of laying out a policy agenda, something Republicans and Donald Trump does not want to do.
Important to note to our audience, Allen Iverson never won a championship.
There you go.
Antoine, see you right. Adriana Cohen, thank you. What goes up must